Right. Good afternoon once again. My name is Hendrik Makaneta, and I'm going to teach you mathematical literacy, grade 10. And of course, my email address is also on the board, makaneta.hm@gmail.com. If you have further questions at the end of this lesson, please feel free just to email me as well, and we can look at your questions. And of course, I'll provide you with my details again at the end of the lesson. What is important here is that we are busy with finance, and of course, we'll take it further. Now, today we'll be looking at the running costs. For instance, we say that the running costs are the costs that are involved in using a vehicle. So we will focus on the costs that we are going to need in as far as the vehicle is concerned. And of course, the cost will include fuel or diesel. I'm sure that you will agree with me that whenever you have a car, you may be required to have some fuel from time to time, and of course that will cost you. If you buy a vehicle, then you know that you have to buy fuel as well. So we are now proceeding with the cost, and the first one there we said is fuel, and of course we also have the maintenance. Whenever you have a vehicle, you need to know that at any time you may be required to purchase or just a service plan in terms of the repairs as well, if some of the parts of the vehicle are not working properly. So let us now carry on, and of course we are looking at this cost, which is very important, and the costs include maintenance, the cost of replacing the tires, and of course fuel as well. So you might want to replace your tires from time to time, after particular kilometers. Those are some of the costs that come with the vehicle. And of course, we also have companies that also supply a table which show the running costs for vehicles. And in this case, we've just chosen AA as one of the companies, which are well known in as far as, dealing with vehicles is concerned. So, like I said, we have got what we call the running costs. You need to bear in mind every time when a person buys a car, these are some of the costs that should be taken into consideration. So, yesterday we looked at the house. When you buy a house, there may be monthly payments that you need to make, and we have shown you how to calculate the monthly repayments. And of course, we also spoke about the deposit, in which the deposit was 15%. And we indicated that once you have paid your deposit, you should be able to, spend the rest or the remaining part, which is your loan amount, which also interest will be charged. So the same goes, when you buy a vehicle, it's the same process. You may buy a car, and on either on installment, meaning that your car will be financed by a bank, and you may pay interest as well. And of course, there will be monthly repayment fees for your car, but also insurance and other things, which come with the cost of the vehicle. But the additional costs of running the car, I've just spoken about them now. The first one there is diesel or petrol, that is fuel, and maintenance, where you service your car from time to time after some kilometers. Some vehicles will say after a certain number of kilometers, you need to bring it back for service. And of course, you also have the cost of replacing the tires from time to time. And right now, I'm just going to deal with the table that will be coming from AA, just to show you some of the costs, that come with the vehicle. Here's the table that I've just promised to give to you. You can see that this is a table with running costs, for petrol vehicles. Remember, there are vehicles that use diesel and there are those that use petrol. Now, in this case, you can see that in the column on the left-hand side there, we have something called the engine capacity, also known as. So the engine capacity there is there on the left. Some engines, 1,301 there to 1,500. So you also have the different service and repair costs, and you also have the tire costs, which are written there on the right hand side, and the petrol factor as well. So we have the fuel, we also have the petrol factor. You remember yesterday we also spoke about some of the factors there that you use when you calculate the monthly repayments. So I want us to study this table thoroughly, and let us go through the table thoroughly. Let us see that these are running costs, table for petrol vehicles, and the average running cost per kilometer there. You can see it's cost per kilometer. All costs are inclusive of VAT. So this C per kilometer simply means that is cost per kilometer. So meaning that how much does it cost per kilometer? And of course, the running cost calculation, the cost per kilometers will be equal to A multiplied by the petrol price in rands. And then you add the B and then you add C as well. So you can see A, that is your petrol factor. So you're going to use the petrol factor there, and then you multiply your petrol factor by the rands per liter, meaning that how much do you pay per liter of petrol, and then you add the service and repair costs in cents. And of course, you also add the tire costs in cents. So this basically means is the amount that you will use just to, for your running costs. That is how you calculate your running costs, which we have just spoken about now in the previous slide. So remember the importance of this table, because we're going to keep referring to it from time to time. So the running cost table, this is for vehicles which use petrol, and of course the average running cost per kilometer there, inclusive of the VAT. Now, if you check, we are saying here that the running cost calculation is cost per kilometer. And of course, this is you multiply A by the petrol price, which is rands per liter, and then you add B, you also add C there. So you can notice that in the service and repair costs and tire costs columns, all represent the cost values in units of cents per kilometer. So this means that the values in the petrol factor column are not cost values. They simply represent a number. So just like the factor that we had yesterday, so the value in the petrol factor there represents a number. So that number, we're going to use it to multiply by the petrol price, and then per liter, and of course you add column B and column C. Now this feature will be extended further. So this formula can be used to determine the running cost of a vehicle per kilometer. So meaning that we will know that how much does the vehicle cost you, per kilometer. So you need to know these things, that how much does the vehicle cost you per kilometer. And of course, even people who hire cars and so on, from either AVs or any other dealer that hires or rents cars. They pay these things per kilometer. You'll be told that per kilometer, this is how much you must pay. Sometimes you may be given about 200 free kilometers, in your trip, and then beyond 200, then you start paying per kilometer. So even in our case, when we look at the running costs, we are going to use the formula which will determine the running costs of a vehicle per kilometer. So here's an example that we're just going to look at. And of course, this is a very important example where we are considering a car with an engine capacity of about 1,400 cc. So that is our engine capacity there. So you consider a car with an engine capacity of 1.4, as they call it, or 1,400. So the vehicle will obviously have its own maintenance costs. So they're not the same. So the maintenance costs of this vehicle will be as follows. Firstly, you will have the service and repair cost, which falls under B, which is about 19 rands and 76 cents per kilometer. So those are the service and repair costs, and they are charged per kilometer. So as I've said initially, we are going to determine the running costs of a vehicle per kilometer. So at the end of this example, you will be able to see that this vehicle with an engine capacity of 1,400 cc, how much does it cost per kilometer? So of course, the tire cost in this case will be 13 rands and 10 cents per kilometer. So you can see that just to travel for a kilometer there, you are paying about 13 rands and 10 cents per kilometer for the tire cost, all tires for the vehicle. And of course, there comes a petrol factor as well. The petrol factor in A, the value is 7.39. You can see that this is not in monetary value, but that is the factor which we have in the table. So the petrol factor there will be 8 rands and 7 rands, and in fact 7.39, sorry. So basically this is how much it will cost. So as we proceed to the next slide, you'll be able to see that we are still talking about the running costs of the vehicle. You take the A there, as we have done in the beginning, you multiply it by the petrol price in rands per liter there, and then you add column B and column C. So notice that the petrol factor must first be multiplied by the current petrol price. So you need to know what is the current price of petrol in order to use the factor there. But the result is also added to the service and repair cost and tire cost. We've just spoken about the service and repair cost and tire cost. Just before we carry on, just to take you back to the slide, you can see that we are looking at the running cost of a car, per kilometer. So a running cost of a car per kilometer is calculated as follows. Firstly, you look at the service and repair cost, which falls under column B. And then, of course, you look at the tire cost, which falls under column C. And then you look at the petrol factor. So just not to confuse you, let me take you back a little bit to the table so that you can see what we're talking about. So this is what I'm referring to. You can see the A there in red. That is the petrol factor. And the B stands for the service and repair costs. And of course, the C there stands for the tire costs. So those are the tire costs. And of course, in cents. Remember, this is in cents, sorry, not in rands, but in cents. So that will be 17.18 for B, and then of course 8.98 in tire cost, and then in 6.62. So we are just going to use this to find how much the vehicle will cost per kilometer. So remember, those are in cents, not in rents. The vehicle will have the following maintenance costs. You can see that we've got 19.76 cents per kilometer. And then you also have 13.10 cents there per kilometer. And the petrol factor as well, which is the value of the petrol factor is 7.39. Now, we've been able to demonstrate that the running cost will be calculated when you multiply your petrol factor by the price of petrol in liters. And then you add your column there, that is your service and maintenance. That is for B. And then for C, that will be your tires, the cost of your tires per kilometer. So remember, once again, that the petrol must be multiplied. In fact, the petrol factor, which is in cents, must be multiplied by the current petrol price. So the current petrol price must be multiplied with the petrol factor there, and then the result must be added to the service and repair cost as well as tire cost. And of course, the running costs will be fuel first and foremost, plus the service and repair costs, and then plus the tire costs. So those are the three columns, A, B, and C, where A stands for the fuel, which will be multiplied by the fuel factor there. And then the second one is the service and repair costs. And the third one is the tire cost. Now, this, by the way, is per kilometer. So you can see that we're multiplying A by the petrol price. So you need to know what is the petrol price at a given moment. And of course, you can be able to multiply the petrol price, that is per liter. And then we see that at a time when we did this preparation, the petrol price, we worked it out as 10 rands and 61 cents per liter. And then we will multiply that by the factor of, the petrol factor of 7.39. Plus, we will add the 19.76 cents per kilometer. And additionally, we'll also add the 13.10 cents per kilometer there. And then you will see that actually, once you multiply 7 by 10 there, 7.39 by 10, you will get 78.4079, and that will be cents per kilometer. So it will be in cents per kilometer. And then, of course, you add that to 19.76 cents per kilometers and 13.1 cents per kilometers. And once you have added everything together, you'll see that it will actually give you 111.2679 cents per kilometer. So in order to maintain your vehicle, then you know that it will cost just more than 100 cents per kilometer in as far as the maintenance of your vehicle is concerned. And you know that if it is 100 cents, then it means it's more than 1 rand per kilometer. And of course, that's how we calculate the running costs of the vehicle. So the running cost in this case emanate from the previous slide that I've shown you, where you just multiply your fuel by the fuel factor. And of course, you get the service and repair costs, as well as the tire costs. So just to take you back to the table, you'll be able to see that these service repairs are there. For example, the 19.76 that I spoke of, I'm sure you can see it is here. Why is it here? Because we are looking at the engine capacity. Remember, the engine capacity of the car that we are talking about is between 1,301 and 1,500 1,500. We said that the engine capacity is 1,400 cc. That is the engine capacity. Now, the fuel factor there is 7.39. And of course, the maintenance will be 19.76, and this is in cents. And the tire cost is 13.10, also in cents. So the two columns B and C, those are cents, those are monetary values. And the first one, 7.39, is just a number. So petrol factor is just a number which you need to multiply by the current amount of fuel per liter. So we have done that. We have calculated that in as far as the liters are concerned. For those of you who just arrived, this is how we have worked it out. We are talking about the running costs or calculation of a vehicle per kilometer. In other words, how much do you have to spend on your vehicle per kilometer, or what are the costs for your vehicle, per kilometer? So per kilometer, it's calculated by looking at the service and repair cost, that is in B, and then you also look at the tire cost, that is in C. You also look at the petrol factor, which you must multiply, by the way, by the current petrol price. So the petrol factor will help you to get the actual amount because you multiply that by the petrol price. And remember, everything there must be in cents. Therefore, the result which is added to the service and repair cost and the tire cost is as follows. We say that the running costs, firstly, is fuel. Secondly, is the service repair plus cost. And then the third one is the tire costs. And of course, we have just multiplied the first one because our vehicle there has got the engine capacity of 1,400 cc there. And of course, once you have multiplied the factor here by 10.7, then you have 78 there, 479, plus the service repair costs and the tire costs. So the total will be 111.2679 cents per kilometer. And of course, this simply means if you were to put it in rands, it would be about R1.11 per kilometer, especially if you round it off. When we work with money, you might as well round off to 2 decimals. So the amount will be just R1.11 per kilometers. That is the cost of a vehicle with an engine capacity of 1,400. So that's why many companies such as Avis or any other company where they rent out cars, car rentals, they will probably charge you per kilometer. After they may give you 200 kilometers for free if you hire a car there. And of course, after 200 kilometers, they start charging you now per kilometers. They can even tell you that, well, we are going to charge you 5 rands per kilometer or 3 rands and 50 cents per kilometer, depending on the type of vehicle that you have taken or that you have decided to hire. And you know that they know that the actual maintenance, the running cost, will be around R1.11 per kilometers. And in that case, they will obviously be making a lot of profit in as far as their rentals are concerned. Because if they charge you 5 rands per kilometer, then if you subtract 1 rand from 5 rands, you're left with 4 rands. So they can make around R3.80 per kilometer. That is how we calculate now the running costs, per kilometer of your vehicle. Now, you can see that this is what we have calculated. I want you to note that we don't just round off this value just yet. This is because if we use the value to determine the cost of a trip with a certain distance. These decimal values will have an impact on the accuracy of the final cost calculation for the trip. Let me remind you as well, whenever you work with figures in mathematical literacy, you must always round off in the final answer. So do not round off before you arrive in the final answer. So we only round off in the final answer. So, for instance, if the petrol price changes, then automatically the running cost will also change. It only makes sense because we're working with a formula. So even if you are still using the same vehicle, if the price of petrol, for instance, goes down, then that means the cost of your vehicle per kilometer or the running cost will also be reduced. If the price of petrol goes up, then again, it means the running cost will also increase. As such, this calculation will have to be repeated every time the price of petrol changes. So you will have to repeat the same calculation. So we can now use this just per kilometer running cost value to determine the cost of a specific trip. For example, let's take a trip from Johannesburg to Cape Town via Bloemfontein. Let's say that you take the trip from Johannesburg to Cape Town via Bloemfontein. And of course, the distance for the trip is 1,369 kilometers. So once you are able to calculate the cost, the running cost for your vehicle per kilometer, then you can be able to know how much will your vehicle cost, for if you take 1,369 kilometers. And who can tell me how are you going to multiply that? How will you know how much the vehicle or the running cost will cost when you take a trip with a distance of about 1,369 kilometers? Say you are traveling from Johannesburg to Cape Town via Bloemfontein. So, of course, the running cost, pardon the spelling there, it should be the cost here, not the code. The running cost, as we know, is 1 rand, 1,112679. That is why we said we don't round off until the final answer. So if you multiply the running cost, which is calculated as, for 1 kilometer, the 1,112679 per kilometer, and we multiply that with the total number of kilometers for your trip, then we are going to approximately get 1,523 rands and 26. Now you can round it off because this is the final amount. So if you take a trip from Johannesburg to Cape Town, you know that your trip in terms of the costs, we're not talking about the other things yet, we're talking about the cost. The cost will be 1,523 rands and 26 cents. That is how much it will cost. And this, by the way, includes also the petrol that you have to pour into the vehicle. It includes the service maintenance and so on. It also includes the tire, the cost per tire, in your vehicle. So this is how we calculate the running costs. Now, we are going to move now to the total operating costs. Now that we've looked at the running costs, we are moving to the total operating costs. Now, the total operating cost of a vehicle is the total cost for using a vehicle, and it's a combination of both the fixed and running costs. So we have running costs, we also have fixed costs. So if you add them together, if you add the running costs and the fixed costs, then you are now talking about the total operating costs. And of course, this is the formula to calculate the operating costs. We say that the operating cost will be equal to the fixed cost plus the running cost. And in this case, the fixed cost plus the running cost, we know that the running cost is made up of fuel cost plus service and repair cost plus tire cost. And of course, that is how we have calculated. So in this example now, we consider the same car. Consider a car with an engine capacity of 1,400. And then you have bought the car for 85,000 rands. And the car has got an average mileage of 16,500 kilometers per year, which is explored in example 1 and 2. Now that is the same car. Fixed cost value in example 1, it will cost you 1,60 per kilometer. So 160 per kilometer, that is in example 1. But the running cost, of course, will be 1.11 rand per kilometer as we have done. And of course, the total operating cost per kilometer will be the fixed cost plus the running cost. And of course, this will come to, you will add the two. Now you will add 1.60 per kilometer plus 1.11 rand. So this will give you 2.71 rand per kilometer. That's how you find the fixed cost value of our car there. And of course, you can see that this total operating cost can now be used to calculate the accurate cost of traveling a distance in the car. So if you are now going to travel the same distance, from Johannesburg to Cape Town, so you can use now the total operating cost, and then you can multiply that by the number of kilometers. You can see that your amount will definitely increase. It will no longer be the same. So if you are traveling a distance of 1,369 kilometers from Cape Town, in fact, from Johannesburg to Cape Town, your total operating cost for the trip will now be 2,712679, and then you multiply that by the number of kilometers, and the answer will be 3,713 rands and 66 cents. And this is the total operating cost for making the one-way trip. Remember that is just one-way trip from Johannesburg to Cape Town. Now, if the car was to also make the return trip to Johannesburg, then the total operating cost will double. So it means you'll multiply 3,713 rands and 66 cents by 2. And the final amount will be 7,427 rands and 32 cents. And that is how we calculate the total operating cost. I hope that it makes a lot of sense as we carry on to look at the other different slides, but this will be the total operating cost for your travel. So just to recap, we have spoken about the importance of calculating the running cost of your car per kilometer. So everything here must be calculated per kilometer. But at the same time, we have also looked at the total operating cost, which includes the fixed value or the fixed cost, as well as the running cost. And this we have done in this example, where we looked at the same car with a engine capacity of 1,400 cc, together with the fact that the car was bought for a particular amount of 85,000 rand. And of course, We calculated the distance from Johannesburg to Cape Town, and we know that the distance from Johannesburg to Cape Town is 1,369 kilometers. And once you multiply the two together, you can get the total operating cost. And of course, if the trip it's a return, then you multiply that by 2. That's how you return. I'm not so sure if there's any question up to so far before we carry on. So the next lesson, of course, will be the mode of transport. We are going to look at, where we'll travel by bus, the cost of traveling by bus vis-a-vis the cost of traveling by car. So the most important thing that you need to know is the table. I've given you the table, which you can use now to find the different costs or to check how is the running cost of a vehicle calculated. So basically, this is the table which was provided by AA. It consists of an engine capacity there. And the capacity, you can see these are different capacities. So engines are not the same. So you may find that there's, as you proceed, the car with a bigger engine will obviously cost you more than the car with a smaller engine. So in this case, we looked at the car with the capacity of 1,400 cc there. And of course, the petrol factor will be 7.39. But say, for instance, you look at let's take this car. Let's take the next car now, which let's say you are looking at the car with an engine capacity of 1,800. Can you calculate the running costs of that vehicle? If you have a pen and a paper, please let us calculate the running cost of this vehicle with an engine capacity of 1.8 or 1,800. Let's calculate the cost, what will be the running costs. Remember to use the petrol factor there. And then, of course, you can use the 22.73 cents for service and repair costs. And then you can add 16.70 there. In fact, 16.70 as your tire costs. And then, of course, that can give you the running costs. Let's just carry on. Let's carry on just to find the running costs. If you want an example, I can show you the example. This is the example that we did. And you can see that what we have done here, we have looked at the service repairs cost, and that was 19.76 cents. And then the tire cost, 13.10 there. And the factor, the petrol factor is there. And of course, in this example, we've also looked at we agreed that the price of 1 liter will be 10 rands and 61 cents. So please use the same price of petrol per liter, which is 10 rands and 61 cents to calculate the running cost of your car. If you are ready, please raise up your hand and then you can tell me how did you calculate the running costs of your car. Please raise up your hands. Let's carry on. Can you just tell us how do we calculate the running costs for this particular vehicle, which is now the engine capacity is 1,800. Right. We are just going to proceed in the same way. And of course, you just use the same principle. As you can see, the engine capacity will now change. It will no longer be 7,39. But the price, remember, is the same. The price of fuel is still the same. So that is 10,61. So you are now going to multiply the 10,61 by the capacity there, or in fact the fuel, the petrol factor, and the petrol factor in this case will be 8,03. So if you multiply 8,03 by 10,61, you'll get 85,19. That is what you will get. And then of course you add the other service repairs there, which is 22,73. Then you will get 107,92. And then of course you also add the 16,70 there. And the final answer there will be 124,62. That is what you will have there. And of course, it will give you, that will be in cents. So since it is in cents, then of course you can now divide that by 100. As we did with the previous one, you can see in this example where we had 111, and then we divided that by 100 to get 1 rand and so on. So if you divide your amount by 100, you'll get 1 rand and 24 cents, per kilometer there. So it will be the running cost, which involves the fuel, the service repair, and the cost will be 1 rand and 24 cents. That is what you will get in as far as this particular problem is concerned. And of course, this has shown that if you take now a trip from Johannesburg to Cape Town, you can just multiply that 1 rand 24, you can multiply it by 1,369. And of course, it will give you 1,706. So that will be the cost of your trip. But if you multiply that by 2, it will be around 3,400. And that is only on the running cost only. We have not included the total operating cost. So that is just on running cost alone. So if we were to include the total operation cost, then it will obviously increase, just like we did with this example where we looked at the total operating cost, which consists of the fixed cost and the running cost. So I hope that this was an exciting lesson for today. Like I said, tomorrow we'll look at the mode of transport, where we'll look at how you travel by bus. And then, of course, we can take it from there. The different routes, the prices, the fares, and so on. And then if you move from Johannesburg to Cape Town via Bloemfontein, the prices will be different if you take the Kimberley route and so on. But that we can do tomorrow. And once again, for more information, please go to Africa Team Geeks website. Alternatively, you can reach us on our social media pages at Africa Team Geek. That is our social media page. And of course, this lesson was brought to you by the Lockdown eSchool in partnership with the Sasol Foundation. Until we meet again tomorrow, thank you very much indeed.